I thought I knew him. I thought love meant trusting someone even when your gut whispered otherwise. But the truth didn't just break my heart, it destroyed everything he'd built. Welcome to the last lesson. If you're new here, subscribe for more real stories about love, betrayal, and finding strength when everything falls apart. Let's begin. I was 19 when I met him. 19, still figuring out who I was, what I wanted, and what love was supposed to feel like. I'd had crushes before, maybe one or two relationships that fizzled out after a few months, but nothing that made me feel the way he did. His name was Ryan. He was 26, which felt older and more sophisticated at the time. He worked in digital marketing for a tech startup, always talking about campaigns and metrics and growth strategies I didn't fully understand, but found impressive anyway. He dressed well, button-downs and Chelsea boots, the kind of style that looked effortless but clearly wasn't. He had this confidence about him, like he knew exactly where he was going in life. And for some reason, he chose me. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party. I was nursing a drink in the corner, half listening to a conversation about someone's terrible Tinder date, when he walked up and asked if I wanted to escape to the balcony for some air. I remember thinking it was such a bold move, so direct, but it worked. We talked for 2 hours that night, about everything. Music, travel, childhood dreams we'd never admitted out loud. He told me he'd grown up in a small town and worked his way up from nothing. He said he valued honesty and loyalty above everything else. I believed him. The first month was a dream. He texted me good morning every single day. He planned dates that felt thoughtful. A rooftop picnic at sunset, a vintage bookstore because I mentioned I loved reading, a late-night drive where we talked until 3 a.m. and watched the city lights blur past the windows. He made me feel seen in a way I'd never experienced before. He'd ask about my day, really listen, remember the small things. If I mentioned a stressful exam, he'd check in afterward. If I talked about a song I loved, it would show up on a playlist he made for me. It felt like he was paying attention in ways no one ever had. I fell fast. By the second month, I'd met his friends. By the third, I had a drawer at his apartment. Everything felt like it was moving in this natural, exciting direction. I started imagining a future with him, graduating, maybe moving in together, building something real. But there were small things I noticed but didn't let myself dwell on. His phone was always face down. Always. On the table during dinner, on the couch during movies, on the nightstand while we slept. When it buzzed, he'd glance at it quickly, sometimes frown, then put it back down without explaining. Work stuff, he'd say. Or just a friend. I didn't push. I didn't want to be that girlfriend, the one who demanded to see his phone or accused him of things without proof. I wanted to be mature. I wanted to trust him. He talked about his ex sometimes. Her name was Vanessa. The first time he mentioned her, we were grabbing coffee, and a song came on that he said reminded him of someone from a long time ago. When I asked who, he said, just my ex. We dated for a couple of years, but it ended a while back. We're still friends, though. No drama. I nodded. I told myself that was healthy, that being on good terms with an ex was a sign of emotional maturity. But the way he said her name always felt careful. Like he was testing how I'd react. Do you still talk to her? I asked once, trying to sound casual. Sometimes, he said. But it's nothing. Really. She's seeing someone else now anyway. I wanted to believe him. So I did. I met Vanessa about 4 months into our relationship. Ryan had invited me to a group hangout. Some of his college friends were getting together at a bar downtown. I was nervous but excited. Meeting his friends felt like another step forward. Another sign that this was serious. Vanessa was there. He didn't tell me she'd be there. He didn't prepare me. I only realized who she was when someone said her name, and I saw the flicker of recognition in Ryan's eyes. She was beautiful, tall, confident, with this effortless elegance that made me suddenly aware of every insecurity I had. She barely looked at me when Ryan introduced us. Just a quick smile, a polite, nice to meet you. And then she turned back to her conversation. But I felt her watching me all night. Not obviously. Not in a way anyone else would notice. But I'd catch her glancing over, her expression unreadable. Once, when Ryan got up to grab drinks, she walked past me and muttered something to a friend that I couldn't quite hear, but the tone was pointed. I tried to brush it off. On the drive home, I asked Ryan if it was weird that Vanessa was there. Weird? Why would it be weird? He said, laughing a little. We're all friends. I told you, there's no drama between us. She seemed cold, I said carefully. He sighed. She's just like that sometimes. She's protective of the group. You're new. She'll warm up. I wanted to believe him. So I did. But after that night, I started noticing more things. The way he'd get vague when I asked about his past. How he changed the subject if I brought up Vanessa. The way his mood would shift sometimes after checking his phone. Like he'd just read something that bothered him but didn't want to talk about. I told myself I was overthinking. That I was being insecure. That love meant trusting someone even when things felt uncertain. I pushed the doubts down. Because the truth is, I didn't want to see the red flags. I didn't want to be the girl who ruined a good thing by asking too many questions. I wanted to be the girl who trusted, who loved without fear, who believed the best in people. I wanted to believe that the way he looked at me was real, that the future he talked about was something we'd actually build together. But somewhere deep down, beneath all the hope and love and wanting to believe, I think I already knew. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. They say your intuition always knows the truth before your heart is ready to accept it. Mine was screaming. I just kept turning down the volume until I couldn't anymore. The unraveling didn't happen all at once. It was slow, subtle, like watching a photograph fade in the sun. You don't notice it day by day, but one morning you look at it and realize the colors aren't what they used to be. That's what happened with Ryan and me. By month 5, things still looked perfect on the surface. We had our routines. Friday movie nights, Sunday morning breakfast at his place, long conversations that stretched into the early hours. He still texted me good morning. Still kissed my forehead when he thought I was sleeping. Still talked about trips we'd take someday, places we'd see together. But something had shifted. I couldn't name it at first. It was just a feeling, this quiet unease that settled in my chest whenever I tried to ignore the small inconsistencies piling up around us. His phone became even more guarded. He started taking calls in the other room, his voice low and careful. When I'd walk in, he'd wrap up quickly, sometimes mid-sentence, and smile at me like nothing was wrong. Who was that? I'd ask. Just work, he'd say. Or my mom. Or nobody important. The answers were always just vague enough to be believable. He started working late more often, missing plans we'd made, canceling at the last minute with apologies that felt rehearsed. Babe, I'm so sorry. This campaign is killing me right now. Rain check. I told myself it was just stress, that his job was demanding, that I needed to be understanding and supportive. But then there were the nights he'd be distant even when we were together. We'd be watching a movie, and I'd look over to find him scrolling through his phone, his jaw tight, his mind clearly somewhere else. When I'd ask if everything was okay, he'd put the phone down and pull me close. Everything's fine, he'd say. I'm just tired. But his eyes told a different story. Vanessa's name started coming up more often. Not from him, from his friends. We'd be at another group hangout, and someone would mention her. Oh, Vanessa's coming later. Or, did you see what Vanessa posted? And Ryan would nod casually like it didn't mean anything, but I'd noticed the way his posture changed. The way he'd check his phone right after. One night, about 6 months into our relationship, we were at his apartment. He was in the shower, and his phone was on the kitchen counter. I wasn't the type to snoop. I'd never been that person. I valued privacy, trusted boundaries. But that night, his phone lit up with a message, and I saw the name on the screen. Vanessa. I froze. The preview showed just enough. You can't keep doing this. We need to talk. My heart started pounding. I stared at that screen, my mind racing through 1,000 explanations, 1,000 justifications. Maybe it was about the friend group. Maybe she was upset about something unrelated. Maybe it was nothing. But my hands were shaking. I heard the shower turn off. I stepped away from the phone, sat back down on the couch, and pretended I hadn't seen anything. When Ryan came out, toweling his hair, I tried to sound casual. Your phone buzzed, I said. Yeah. He picked it up, glanced at it, then set it back down without responding. Just Vanessa. She's being dramatic about something. About what? I asked, my voice smaller than I intended. He shrugged. I don't know. Some friend group thing. You know how she gets. He kissed the top of my head and sat down next to me like the conversation was over. But it wasn't. Not for me. That text haunted me for days. Asterisk, you can't keep doing this. Asterisk, keep doing what? And why did he dismiss it so quickly? Why didn't he seem concerned or curious or even annoyed? I started paying closer attention. I noticed that when we were out with his friends and Vanessa was there, they had this rhythm, this unspoken language. The way she'd make a comment and he'd smirk like they were sharing a private joke. The way she'd touch his arm when she talked to him, just briefly, just casually, but enough that I felt it in my stomach. One night, I asked him directly, "Are you sure there's nothing going on between you and Vanessa?" He looked at me like I'd just accused him of something terrible. "Are you serious right now?" he said, his voice edged with frustration. "I've told you 100 times, we're just friends. Why are you so obsessed with this?" "I'm not obsessed," I said, feeling my face heat up. I saw her text the other night. It seemed like what?" he interrupted. "Like she was texting a friend? Because that's what we are. I can't help it if you're insecure about my past." The word insecure hit me like a slap. Because that's what he always did. Whenever I brought up something that bothered me, he'd flip it back on me. Make it about my trust issues, my immaturity, my inability to handle a healthy adult relationship. And I'd apologize. Every time. "I'm sorry," I said that night. "You're right. I'm just overthinking." He softened, pulled me into a hug. "I get it. But you have to trust me, okay? I'm with you. Not her. Not anyone else." I wanted to believe him. So I tried. But the doubt didn't go away. It just buried itself deeper. I started doing things I wasn't proud of. I'd check his Instagram stories to see if Vanessa had viewed them. I'd scroll through old photos, looking for clues I might have missed. I'd analyze the timestamps on his posts, the backgrounds, the comments from mutual friends. I felt like I was losing my mind. And the worst part? I couldn't talk to anyone about it. My friends would tell me I was overthinking, that I needed to trust him, or leave. My family didn't even know we were serious yet. I'd kept it casual when I mentioned him, not wanting to jinx it. So I carried it alone. This weight, this constant hum of anxiety that followed me everywhere. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Saturday. Ryan had said he was working late on a pitch that was due Monday. I'd offered to bring him dinner, but he'd said no, told me he needed to focus, that he'd see me tomorrow. I believed him. But around 10 p.m., I was scrolling through Instagram, mindlessly watching stories, when I saw a post from one of his friends. It was a group photo, taken at a bar downtown, and there, in the background, unmistakable, was Ryan. And next to him, laughing, her hand on his shoulder, was Vanessa. My stomach dropped. I stared at that photo for so long my eyes started to burn. I zoomed in, hoping I was wrong, hoping it was someone who just looked like him. But it was him. Absolutely him. He'd lied. He wasn't working late. He was out with her. I didn't cry. I didn't call him. I didn't text. I just sat there in the dark of my apartment, feeling something inside me shift. Because up until that moment, I'd been fighting for him, defending him in my own mind, giving him the benefit of the doubt, convincing myself I was the problem. But now I knew. And once you know, really, truly know, you can't unknow it. I fell asleep that night with my phone in my hand, that photo still open on my screen. And when I woke up the next morning, I wasn't the same person anymore. I was done pretending. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't discovering the truth. It's admitting you knew all along. The night I stopped lying to myself was the night everything finally became clear. If this story is resonating with you, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. It helps more than you know. Let's continue. Sunday morning came, and Ryan texted me like nothing had happened. "Good morning, beautiful. Miss you. Coffee later." I stared at those words for a long time. 24 hours ago, I would have smiled. I would have texted back immediately, made plans, push down whatever doubt was gnawing at me. But now, looking at that message with the memory of that Instagram photo burned into my mind, all I felt was cold clarity. He was lying, and he thought I didn't know. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I got up, made myself breakfast, and sat with the silence. I needed to think clearly, away from the fog of emotions that had clouded every conversation we'd had for months. I pulled up that Instagram story again, studied it. The timestamp said 9:47 p.m. The location tag read The Warehouse, a bar downtown, the kind with exposed brick and craft cocktails that Ryan always said he liked. He told me he was working. He was with Vanessa. The math was simple. The conclusion was unavoidable. But I needed to be sure. I needed to see how far the lie went. So I texted him back. Sure. Noon. Perfect. My place. See you then. I arrived at his apartment at exactly noon, my heart pounding but my mind strangely calm. He opened the door with that same easy smile, pulled me in for a kiss, asked how I'd slept. Everything about him radiated normalcy. Like yesterday had been exactly what he'd said it was. How was work last night? I asked casually as I set my bag down. Exhausting, he said, running a hand through his hair. We were at the office until almost midnight. But we got the pitch done, so it's worth it. He didn't even hesitate. The lie came out smooth, practiced, effortless. I nodded. That's good. I'm proud of you. He smiled, kissed my forehead. Thanks, babe. Coffee. Actually, I said, keeping my voice even. I saw something last night. On Instagram. His expression didn't change, but I saw it, the tiny flicker in his eyes, the almost imperceptible stiffening of his shoulders. Yeah, what's that? I pulled out my phone, opened the story, and handed it to him. He looked at it, then at me, then back at the phone. Oh, he said, laughing a little. Yeah, we went out after. Just for like an hour. The team needed to decompress. You said you were at the office until midnight. We were. Then we grabbed a drink. It was quick. Vanessa's not on your team, I said quietly. The silence that followed felt like it stretched for hours. He handed my phone back, his jaw tightening. She was meeting up with some of the guys. I ran into her there. It wasn't planned. You didn't think to mention it? Why would I, he said, his tone shifting now, defensive. It was nothing. I grabbed one drink and went home. I didn't think I needed to report every single person I ran into. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? He snapped. Because honestly, I'm getting really tired of you constantly questioning me about Vanessa. It's like you don't trust me at all. And there it was. The flip. The way he always turned it back on me. Made me the villain for asking questions, for noticing inconsistencies, for trusting my gut. But this time, I didn't apologize. You're right, I said. I don't trust you. His face went pale. What? I don't trust you, Ryan. And I haven't for a while. He opened his mouth, closed it, then shook his head like I was being unreasonable. This is ridiculous. I've done nothing but try to make you happy, and you're throwing it away over nothing. It's not nothing, I said, my voice steady. You lied to me. You've been lying to me. I didn't lie. You said you were working. You were at a bar with your ex-girlfriend. She's not my ex-girlfriend anymore, he shouted, and then immediately seemed to regret the volume. He lowered his voice. We're friends. That's it. I don't know how many times I have to say it. Then show me your phone. The words hung in the air between us. His expression shifted, shock, then anger, then something that looked almost like panic. Are you serious right now? If there's nothing to hide, show me. That's such a violation of privacy, he said, shaking his head. I can't believe you'd even ask that. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You don't trust me, and that's your problem, not mine. I'd expected this. The indignation, the deflection. But I also knew that if there was truly nothing to hide, he would have handed me the phone just to prove me wrong. His refusal told me everything. I'm done, I said quietly. Done with what? Done with this. With us. His face went from anger to desperation in an instant. Wait, what? No. Babe, come on. Don't do this. You're overreacting. I'm not overreacting, I said, grabbing my bag. I'm finally paying attention. Please, he said, stepping toward me. Just, let's talk about this. We can work through it. I love you. I looked at him then, really looked at him. And I realized something that hurt more than any lie he'd told. I didn't know if he'd ever really loved me, or if he just loved the idea of me, the girl who believed him, who didn't ask too many questions, who made him feel good about himself without demanding too much truth in return. If you loved me, I said, my voice breaking just slightly, you wouldn't have lied. I walked out before he could say anything else. The next few days were a blur. I blocked his number after the 10th call, deleted our photos after the 15th text begging me to reconsider, unfollowed him and Vanessa and everyone in that friend group who'd probably known more than I did. I cried. A lot. Not because I missed him, not exactly, but because I mourned the version of him I'd fallen in love with, the one who maybe never existed. My friends rallied around me. They brought ice cream and wine and let me vent for hours. They told me I deserved better. They said they'd had bad feelings about him, but didn't want to overstep. I wish they had. But I also knew I wouldn't have listened. I wasn't ready to hear it then. A week after the breakup, my best friend Maya came over. I need to show you something, she said, pulling up her phone. She'd been doing some digging, something I'd been too heartbroken to do myself. She showed me Vanessa's Instagram. Not the public one, the private one, the Finsta that Maya's cousin followed. There were photos, recent photos, of Vanessa and Ryan together, at restaurants, in what looked like his apartment. One was dated 3 weeks ago, right in the middle of our relationship. The caption on one read, "On and off, but never really off." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "There's more," Maya said gently. She showed me a LinkedIn post from someone who worked at Ryan's company. It was celebrating a promotion, and in the comments, someone had made a joke about Ryan finally getting caught for inflating his resume during the hiring process. I read it 3 times. "Wait," I said. "He lied about his job too?" Maya nodded. Apparently he exaggerated his credentials when he applied. They just found out. Everything clicked into place. The late nights, the stress, the defensiveness. He hadn't just been lying to me about Vanessa. He'd been lying about everything. And the worst part? I'd been so focused on saving our relationship that I'd made myself complicit in the lie. I looked at Maya. "He's going to lose everything, isn't he?" She squeezed my hand. "Probably. But that's not your fault. And it's not your problem anymore." She was right. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe. Chapter 4 is where everything falls apart for him. You won't want to miss it.